You're live.
Alrighty, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Wordfence Live. Today's August 18th, 2020. We're going to get everything going here in just a few moments, but we want to give everybody a minute or two to get joined in and settled in here with us. My name is Scott Miller. I'm a customer support engineer here at Wordfence, and in a few moments I'm going to be joined by threat analyst Chloe Chamberlain and QA engineer and threat analyst Ram Gall. So let us know in chat if you can hear me loud and clear. In today's episode, we're going to be counting down the 10 most common WordPress security mistakes. So these are mistakes that you might be making, or somebody that you know might be making, a partner, a friend, a colleague, a coworker. So I urge you to stick around till the end of the show here and hear the number one most common mistake that WordPress users are making right now, in our opinion. We also have a little bit of a bonus today. So Chloe is going to be showing off how the Divi and Divi Builder exploits work. So you're not going to want to miss that, and we're going to have that for you in the middle of the show today. So if you're excited about today's stream, hit the like button. I know quite a few of you were hanging out in the chat there, and we appreciate everybody who came early and was chatting with Tim. We have Tim Cantrell, a customer support engineer, in the chat, who's answering your questions. Hit the like button below the video here, and we'll be sure to make similar content going forward. You can also hit the subscribe button and the bell to be notified when we go live in the future. Right now, we're doing these every Tuesday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific time. So I see we got some people, we got India and Italy in chat. Let us know where you're viewing from. I'm just south of Pittsburgh, and it's quite nice here today. I got a big window here. It's nice and sunny, only about 75 degrees. So I might sneak out for a little bit of a walk after the stream ends here. Like I said, I appreciate everybody coming and hanging out, get a good dose of security. We got a cool show planned here with some common mistakes that hopefully none of us are making here. So we're going to go over all of that. And thanks again to Tim in the chat, hanging out and answering your questions. So feel free to let us know any questions that you have, security, Wordfence related, and we'll do our very best to answer those. I see we got another viewer south of Pittsburgh as well, so welcome. So we've been doing the Wordfence live stream for about 4 months now, give or take. Time flies. So if you want to catch up on some of the other content that you may have missed, if you haven't been following every week, you can check that out here on our YouTube channel and see some of the cool things that we went over. If you've been tuning in a good bit, you've seen Chloe and Ram before. They've shown off numerous vulnerabilities and some walkthroughs on how those were done. Really cool content. We have some of those. We audited a site recently. I believe that was 2 weeks ago. Last week we went over WordPress 5.5 and we put out an awesome blog post on that. So check that out as well. Some of our older content, if you're new to Wordfence, you can go back and look at some of our older content and figure out how to set up each of our features. We went over brute force protection, rate limiting, country blocking, scan scheduling, and a lot of things in some of our older videos. So check those out if you need a hand setting anything up. Kathy Zant also narrates some of the videos and the walkthroughs on there for some different features that we have as well. So there's a lot of good stuff on there. If you're completely new to Wordfence, maybe you just started using it recently, I'll give you a quick little overview. Wordfence is a security plugin for WordPress, and WordPress is now powering about 35% of the web. So it's a large target, and that's what makes a firewall so important. Wordfence is freely available on wordpress.org, and you can download that from wordpress.org or from your site in the plugins section. Comes with a malware scanner, tells you if you've been hacked. You'll see your scan results come up, and it'll give you the option to repair and delete. It'll also help you keep your plugins and themes updated. And as you may have seen, as I had mentioned last week, we talked about WordPress 5.5, which released new features to help keep themes and plugins up to date. And we have a good video from last week in the live stream that shows you if it might be a good idea to enable those or if you should hold off. So if you're not sure, or maybe you're just getting ready to update to 5.5, you can check that video out and the blog post that we'll have linked with it to see if you should enable those right now, depending on what kind of site that you're running. Back to Wordfence, very powerful firewall, blocks attacks and malicious attackers. We're protecting over 3 million sites worldwide right now. So lots of data there. And that goes into some of our premium features, such as the real-time IP blacklist, where when we see IPs hitting Wordfence sites excessively, whether they're brute forcing or trying to exploit a new vulnerability, those are added to the blacklist, and they can't interact with premium users' sites at that point. So very powerful feature in the real-time IP blacklist. If you're a premium user, you know that already. The free plugin as well is also incredibly powerful. And at WordCamps, whenever somebody comes to the booth and they're asking about Wordfence, if you're not using security right now or you're not sure, we've heard a lot of people come to the booth that they say maybe my hosting provider has security for me. You'll want to look at the free plugin, at least to start off and get the firewall in there protecting you from some of these issues. And there are a lot of them. If you follow the blog or the mailing list, you see Chloe and Ram finding these new vulnerabilities quite frequently. We'd love to hear in the chat how long you've been using Wordfence and perhaps Wordfence Premium if you're a premium user. So let us know how long you've been using it and if we've helped out with site cleaning or a site audit in the past, perhaps. So we've been, here at Wordfence, we've been protecting WordPress sites for close to a decade, and we've seen a lot in those years. Kathy, who narrates some of the videos, she was a site cleaner. Chloe, who's going to be joining us today, had cleaned some sites. And Ram, he's a threat analyst and a QA engineer, and they have seen a lot. So we're going to be going over some of those stories. We all make mistakes. So, if some of us are making some of these mistakes on our list, we're here to learn from that. And we hope that everybody here does. So we're going to let you know those top 10 mistakes, counting down from number 10 that we've seen in WordPress security, so that you can hopefully learn from those. And if you have any security tips, also throw them into the chat, and we'll be sure to call them out if we miss any of them. So we really appreciate that. Now, we are broadcasting from Zoom to YouTube here, so this is public forum, and we ask that you don't share any sensitive or private information, as this will be viewable after the fact on the YouTube channel like our other live videos. So if you have anything sensitive or anything personal that you'd like to write in, go ahead and send that to feedback@wordfence.com, and you can use the subject Wordfence Live when you write in there. So as I mentioned, we're going to be taking a look at the top 10 most common mistakes that we see users make. And before we jump into that, let's bring in Ram Gall and Chloe Chamberlain. How's it going, Ram?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing well. We have a lot of activity in the chat. How's it going, Chloe?
Doing good, yeah.
Good. Yeah, we have some longtime users here. Timothy, 6 years, 4 years. Got some free users here. Lots of people taking advantage of Wordfence. Ram, how long did you use Wordfence before you got started here?
So I actually did work in security before I got started here. I also did some site cleans, but I have spent a lot of time working with Wordfence and just like configuring it on sites before I started working here. So I did have a bit of familiarity with it, and to some extent it's code base before I got here.
And as a QA engineer here now, you probably know as much about Wordfence, or at least up there, with the best of them. So there's a lot in there. There's a lot of free features in Wordfence.
I mean, yes, if anything I don't know about it, I can look up in the code base.
How about you, Chloe? Were you using Wordfence a little before you got started here?
Actually, not at all. But my mom did work here, so I knew a little bit about it and stuff. So yeah, I didn't really use it much before, but I've used it a lot now.
Yeah, I remember right whenever I started with some local business sites in the area, I started to realize, because I made one of the mistakes of having too many sites hosted on one hosting account. And at that point, I realized that, at the very least, I'm going to need security. And I was, sort of a beginner with WordPress at the time. So, but those are the things that we sort of all fall into. We have to learn from the mistakes, and hopefully you don't make them again after that. And that's what makes you a good security-minded person. You gotta make sure not to fall onto those mistakes again. So what is up first? We're gonna look at the common mistakes, 10 down to 6. Is that right, Chloe?
Yep. For starters, just 10 to 6.
All right, let's get into it.
All right, sounds great. So for mistake number 10, so we're going to go down from 10 to 1. So mistake number 10 is people often change their login URL. This is a common thing. A lot of people want to do it, but it's actually a pretty big mistake. So the issue with hiding your login URL is that you are basically doing security through obscurity. So you're just hiding something rather than actually securing it. And so there's tools that attackers can use to find these URLs. And one of them that comes to mind is the Dirbuster. Basically, it's a brute force tool that's going to test URLs. And eventually, an attacker can find that URL. And there's other ways to find it as well. And so hiding it doesn't really do much besides hiding it. And site owners often neglect to take those extra security precautions and make sure that your login area is optimally secure. So instead of hiding your login URL, we recommend enabling brute force protections. This is in Wordfence, both free and premium. So you can lock out an IP after a certain amount of brute force attempts, along with a couple extra features, but that's one of the key ones to make sure that you have configured. So maybe if you don't have a lot of users logging into your site and you know your password and maybe it's just you might want to do like after 2 login attempts, the person gets blocked out because then it'll block that IP for you. Another thing you want to take into consideration is making sure that you're using strong passwords. This just makes it harder for attackers to brute force. Again, instead of hiding your login URL, you're making things harder to get in, more protection rather than just hiding things. Another thing you want to do is enable two-factor authentication. So if your password does get compromised, you will have that second layer of authentication that an attacker can't easily bypass. It'd be very difficult and pretty much effective at making sure that nobody can get in if they've compromised your password. And then another thing you can do is actually enable an HT password. So it's HTPASSWD, I believe. And so basically this adds a second layer of authentication to your admin area. And just to show you how this works real quick, I'm going to share my screen. So let's do this. 1 second. Sharing now. And so when I go to my login area on my site, you can see that I get this prompt for a username and password. So this is basically another layer of authentication that I have to get through in order to get to that admin area. So this is definitely a much better way to protect that area rather than hiding it, because attackers can find that URL and it's relatively easy to do. So adding another password and username is definitely the better route to go, and make sure those are strong and secure, as well as your WP admin credentials. And so just to show you, once I enter these credentials, we are taken to the login page, just so you can see that in action. And so that's it for mistake number 10. So make sure that you're not hiding your login URL, but rather you're making your login area harder to potentially break into and making that more secure.
Another thing with number 10, instead of outright hiding the login form or moving it, you always have that option with Wordfence Premium for country blocking to pretty much hide it from the other countries, if especially on small sites where it might just be you logging in, Sally's cat blog. If it's just her, then you can block from the rest of the countries. Would you say that would be probably recommended more so than changing the login form or hiding?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because if you're in the US and you know that you're not going to be connecting from anywhere else, and you can just block all countries from accessing that page, and it's going to block a lot of those attempts from getting there from bots and crawlers and things like that. So definitely something else we'd like to recommend. And so number 9 is not using an SSL TLS certificate. This is a really common mistake, and it's actually really easy to implement. The issue with not having one of those is that the data between a client and the web server is going to be unencrypted. So basically, if someone is on the same network and sniffing the traffic, they can read that data that's going back and forth. And so I have an example for you. Let me go ahead and share my screen again. So beforehand, I did a little packet capture, and here is a look at a packet capture of me logging into my site. As you can see, I was able to access my login username. I was able to access the password. I also have the host name, so I can go to that URL and log in. So basically, if I'm on the same network, I can capture that information and I can log into that website. Or sometimes credit card data is sent in plain text. And so I could potentially gain that information. And so when you enable a SSL TLS certificate, your data ends up looking like this. So now I don't get to see that login username and that password. Instead, it's all jumbled up. I can't read it. I can't intercept it. So it's incredibly important to have this on your site to make sure that your users and any data that's being sent and transmitted is being essentially jumbled up, encrypted, and not easily read by attackers on the same network. And it's also important because Google favors sites that use SSL TLS certificates. So it's important to have that for your site's ranking on search engines as well. And just to show you real quick, my testing cPanel has a really easy, it's really easy to do for some hosts. So if I go to Let's Encrypt SSL, I just click this. I can just click issue for the site I want to issue it to, and then issue. And then all I have to do after this process is done, takes a second here, is go into my site's dashboard, change the URLs. See, so it's now installed, and change the URLs to HTTPS instead of the HTTP to make sure that those requests are getting sent using that certificate. And sometimes there's issues with images loading and things. There's plugins that can help you, or you can look up how to do that and make sure that everything loads over HTTPS instead of HTTP. Yeah, so that's a really easy way to do it. Let's Encrypt also has guides for you. You can use that if your hosting provider doesn't have easy 1-2-click installation. So the next security mistake you might be making, let me stop my screen share here, is that you are using admin as your username. This is a really big mistake because attackers have scripts that go out, try and brute force just with the generic admin username. There's vulnerabilities that might require the admin username. So having that default admin username is really bad. And if you go to your WordPress dashboard, it'll tell you can't change your username, but there are ways that you can. So the first is you can just create a new user and then delete the old admin user. Make sure you attribute all that content from your site to the new user. And when you're creating that username, make sure it's something unique or complex. You can do characters and random numbers, but just make sure it's unique and not easily guessable. And then make sure that you try to put some user enumeration protection on your site so that those usernames can't easily be enumerated. And before I go too deep into that, the second way that you can change your username is by going directly into the database and just changing it. And that's the way I would recommend because it's super easy to do. So we go to our cPanel, use phpMyAdmin, for example. Most cPanels have that in their hosting accounts. It'll take you to your database manager, phpMyAdmin. And just one second while this loads, but essentially we are going to go into the users table. So we'll just use this one, for example, and we'll go to users. And what you'll want to do is you'll just change this to something better and just hit enter. And your user login will change into whatever that you put there, and you can start logging in with that username instead. It's really easy to do compared to the other method, so it's definitely the way I recommend. And before changing it, make sure that you take a backup just in case anything goes wrong. And you can restore your site immediately if anything happens. But yeah, that's the number 8 mistake that you could be making, and so make sure that you correct that as soon as you can. Number 7 is going to be using weak passwords. Unfortunately, it's something that's still really common. Did I share my screen when I was changing the admin name? Do you know?
I don't think you did. I just saw a couple comments asking for the screen share now. We're on a little bit of a delay here.
All right, let me go ahead and share that. Sorry about that. So we'll start from the beginning. Okay, it should be sharing now. Sorry about that. So click on phpMyAdmin. It's going to load. And you can use like AdMiner or something else if you prefer. But then you're going to want to go into the database. You're going to want to select the site that you want to change the username for. Click on the users table. And you're going to want to change your user login right here to something else. So it was admin before and I changed it to something better. Unfortunately, you missed that. But just to show you, I can change it back to admin, hit enter, and it changes that user login back to admin. So that's how you do that. Sorry again. So the next thing I was going to cover is weak passwords. So this is going to be like using passwords like your dog's name or your cat's name or something you like doing. Funny story, when I was a kid, like 5th grade, this is when I should have known I was going to be a hacker. I had friends and I actually was able to guess their passwords based on things they like. Yeah, it's pretty funny because it was like, I am cool was one of the passwords. So like, don't make sure you're not using these weak passwords because in 5th grade, I was able to get into that account. So yeah, so don't use weak passwords. What you want to use is strong, complex things. Make sure they're 10 characters or more, letter, number, a symbol. 10 is really the minimum. I would recommend going as high as you possibly can, and then make sure that you're using a password manager to store all those complex, unique passwords so that they're not easily brute forced. I have a site to show you that's pretty cool. Share screen again here. So it is how secure is my password. I don't recommend putting your real password in here, but for fun, you can put in different passwords and see predictably how long it would take to crack it. So for example, if I put password, it says instantly, but if I put password random characters at the end, it says 10 trillion years. If I just do like all sorts of random uppercase, like everything just totally random, it says it takes 200 decillion years, so like really long time. All passwords are technically crackable, but it will take a really, 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 really long time if you make those complex and you make them secure. So that's why we always recommend making those complex passwords so that it's not easily guessable. And so number 6 biggest mistake that you could be making is that you're not running a web application firewall. So if you're using Wordfence, you already are, so you have that box checked. Hopefully you're not making that mistake. But essentially what this does is it checks requests and makes sure, and it determines if the request should be allowed or denied. So it's basically looking for, is Jimmy logging in? Is Jimmy real? Yep, okay, you can log in. Or if I put a script tag in a comment, is that allowed? Most of the times it's not, because it could be a cross-site scripting attack. So it's basically looking for that and trying to see whether requests should be accepted or denied based on the parameters and what's happening. And to show you an example of this, this is now where I'm going to exploit the Divi vulnerability that we disclosed, I think the week before last week. You can read the blog article on our site. But I'm just going to show you how this works, and then why it's important to have a firewall for vulnerabilities like this. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen again, and we're going to go over to Sally's cat blog. She has the Divi Builder version 4.5.1, so she's running a vulnerable version. And I'll go ahead and get rid of this tab because I logged in as a contributor after. So I'll show you real quick. I have my profile. My username is contributor, and I only have contributor permission, so I could go ahead and create a post. I think Wordfence is enabled, so I'm going to go ahead and disable that real quick before I begin, just to show you how it works before we block it. Slow. So let's go to Wordfence Firewall. And I'm going to go ahead and manage and just disable it real quick. Save changes. It's being slow today. All right, so we're at 0, so it's not enabled right now. I'll go ahead and log back out, and I'll go back in and log in as the contributor user. And our contributor is not using a strong password, so that is how someone could possibly get in. Make sure that all your users are using strong passwords. And so I'm going to go ahead and go to posts. We're going to add new. And so this vulnerability was a arbitrary file upload vulnerability. So basically you could upload any file you wanted due to their import functionality. While this loads, just wait a second. Things are just slow today.
It's only slow when you absolutely need it to be fast, though, right?
Right? Exactly. All right. And so we'll click this. We'll go start building. Don't need the tour. Man, just really slow. Okay, start building again. Okay, so what we do is it's the portability import function. So if you click on import, no file selected, you're technically supposed to be able to upload JSON files. I don't think I have one on here right now. So 1 second while I go ahead and just copy and paste one over. .json. I know I have one over here. We'll go ahead and copy this. Desktop. Should be in here somewhere, but it's not. Okay. So what I'll do real quick is I'll just export a JSON file real quick from this. What it says is going to take a minute. Please be quicker. 99. Save file. We'll just go ahead and use this for demonstrations. So you're supposed to be able to import that exported file. Downloads. Here it is. All right, open. and then click import Divi Builder layout. So this is how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to import that layout. If you go over here, we're going to go ahead and send that request that was just sent, this import request, send it over to the repeater. And we're going to modify this request. We're going to change the file to a .php file. And we're going to just change the name to layout so it's easy to find. And we're going to go ahead and just put a simple one-liner PHP info for demonstration purposes. Send. We get a import context fail message. So basically what happened here is the file failed to import, but there was no file deletion after it failed to import. So the file stays on the server because it didn't go through those checks that it needed to in order for the file to be deleted. And we go ahead and we go to WP content. We go to uploads. We go to 2020, leave page. I think I have stuff on here to stop me from accessing the directory. Let's see, I might have messed up that beforehand. Yeah, so I think there's file execution disabled on here and some other stuff to help make the site secure. I forgot to disable that beforehand. So maybe while Scott's doing the break, I can fix that real quick just to show you how it executes. But before, let me go ahead and just show you how the firewall actually blocks this real quick. Sorry for the anticlimactic scenario. So that's what happens if your site's secure.
I think it might have just been an uppercase L in layout for the file name. Yeah, I'm not sure. What? Oh, never mind.
I think
it's forbidden.
Yeah, I think the HT access is blocking it. So let's go back to WP admin. I'm going to log out and enable the firewall and then just send the request in burp. Log in. So the good thing about this is a Wordfence firewall actually has built-in firewall rules that block some of the most common attack methods like file uploads. And the Wordfence firewall actually blocked this vulnerability from being exploited before we even discovered it. So it had that protection built in already. So if an attacker had found this vulnerability before we did and started actively exploiting it, you would have already been protected because you were running the Wordfence firewall or any other firewall, but hopefully Wordfence firewall. And so that's why it's very important to have those, because zero-day vulnerabilities are discovered all the time. Attackers go and try and exploit them before developers get a chance to fix it. And having that firewall access that protection in between a vulnerability being discovered and actively exploited. So if I hit go, should get blocked. So here we can see that that request was blocked by the Wordfence firewall generated by Wordfence. So again, that firewall was there and provided that protection before we even discovered it, which is the main reason that you want to have a firewall installed on your site to protect vulnerabilities from being exploited. Yeah, and that is mistake number 6 that you might be making. So make sure you correct it. And I think Scott is going to tell you a little bit more about Wordfence.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for that. That was so. Let us know in the chat though if you have made any of those mistakes. And it's I won't lie. Using admin as a username definitely early on something that I had done, and using weak passwords. So we had a question about the feature for lockout after how many forgotten password attempts, and the question was, is that a daily count or a lifetime count? And I believe that is based on the time that you have set in brute force protection there. So from the first attempt, if I am not mistaken, so if you have that set to 4 hours and you have one failed password or one password reset attempt, it will then begin counting from that point. And it's very similar with the lockout after login attempts there. So I wanted to clear that question up. And Tim may have already gotten to these, but I just wanted to bring them up. We also had one about blocking all countries from logging in, which we mentioned earlier with regard to the 10th most common mistake in changing the login URL. So to set up country blocking, you will first need to have the premium license, and then that feature will be in Wordfence Firewall area. And then in the firewall area, you can click blocking, and you'll see 3 different block types: the IP address, country blocking, and the custom pattern. And if you click on the country option there, you can set up whether you block from the entire site or just the login form. And it's usually, typically, I recommend blocking the login form. But if you do block the entire site, be careful to not block some European countries and the USA, as the Google crawlers and other crawlers can then get blocked, and it may affect your search standing. So as I had mentioned, let us know in the chat if you've made any of these mistakes to this point. Also, you can guess what you think the #1 mistake is going to be on our list, and we're going to be going over that here in just a few minutes. So one of the goals here at Wordfence is to help you think about security in a new way and feel empowered about making good security decisions. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing these Wordfence live streams. We love spreading the knowledge and getting the feedback and interacting with you, especially when we can't be out at the WordCamps, which this is exactly what we do there, and we really enjoy it. Most of the features in the Wordfence plugin are tools that help keep you and help you understand what's happening on your site, help keep you up to date with what's happening on the site. And you see that with the data and live traffic, the security logging, email alerts, activity reports, and you can set up activity reports to send daily, weekly, monthly, and so on. And all that helps keep you in contact with the site and keep things up to date, which is very important in keeping the site secure. We also have Wordfence Central. So if you're new to Wordfence, you may not know about Central. Central is a great place, and it's a hub on the wordfence.com site. You can go to wordfence.com/central. And what you do is you add your free and premium Wordfence protected sites there, and you can keep an eye on the security of those sites from that one place without having to log into each site individually. You can also initiate scans from that area, and you can change your Wordfence settings using templates. So we have customers who have hundreds of sites added on their one account. And if you have them, if you're using a similar hosting provider for a lot of them, maybe you need to tweak your scan settings a certain way, or maybe there's other common settings that you want on all the sites, but you don't want to log into each one directly. You can use one template and push it out to whichever sites that you want there. So lots of good features on Central. It's completely free, and you can add free or premium sites there. Another way to stay ahead of the game with security is our mailing list. And you can check that out at the bottom of the wordfence.com page in the footer, and you can sign up there. We don't send a bunch of mail from that, so you're not going to get an excessive amount of mail. And it's likely that you're going to hear new vulnerabilities from our mailing list, prior to reading anywhere else. And the only frequent thing about it is the fact that Chloe and Ram are finding a lot lately, and they have been for a while. So you're going to see their names a lot in the mailing list and on the blog, with new vulnerabilities that are coming out. So that's definitely one way to stay ahead of the game. If you're a free user, the mailing list can be very helpful, because if there's a new vulnerability, you might not be protected right off the bat, and your options would be to update the plugin immediately or switch to another plugin that you're using for that functionality. If you're a premium user, whenever we send those out, there's likely a new firewall rule that's coming with it, and you would be protected as a premium user at that point. So it's a great way to stay on top of new issues, and you hear it first from the mailing list oftentimes. So in the event that you've fallen compromised to a vulnerability, and there's a lot of them, unfortunately. As we said, WordPress powers a large portion of the web. We also offer site cleaning and site audit services, and both of those come with a 1-year premium license. So both of them also come with a 90-day guarantee after the cleaning or the audit, which guarantees that if you follow the recommendations that we give out in our reports, which are pretty much changing passwords, updating anything that's out of date, and things along that line, then you will be eligible for the 90-day guarantee. So if your site were to be compromised again after a cleaning or an audit, you would be eligible to be cleaned again for free. That's typically priced at $179, and it comes with a 1-year premium license, which is $99 by itself. So it's a very, very good thing to consider. The audit is perfect if you just want peace of mind. If you're not thinking that you're hacked, but you want a report of what your security looks like at the time, we give a 60-point inspection for that. But also with the audit, we go through similar steps as the site cleaning. So if we do find malware during an audit, we switch you over to a site cleaning at no additional charge. So it has that benefit, and it's great for peace of mind. The site cleaning is a straightforward clean. So if you're thinking that you're hacked or if your site's redirecting elsewhere, that would be a good thing to move forward with. Now, what do we have here? Ram, the top 5 mistakes from 5 to 1. Hopefully we have some good guesses in the chat. I haven't gotten to look, but I'll keep an eye on that while you go down the list, Ram.
All right. I do have the top 5 mistakes you might be making when it comes to WordPress security. And mistake number 5 is poor hosting choices. Now, this isn't just poor choices when it comes to your hosting provider, but also poor choices in how you host your site. So when it comes to hosting provider, you are going to want to consider a number of things, like whether or not they provide access logging. If you can access the logs or even just temporarily enable your logs, though it's better to have constant logs that are cycled out. Then it's easier to determine when and if an intrusion has occurred. Are you making backups? Because that's also one of the hosting choices. If you have regular backups, you can restore after something goes wrong. Does your host allow you to install an SSL or a TLS certificate for free? In a lot of cases, Chloe showed Let's Encrypt functionality, and if you can just click a button and install that, then that's going to make your life a lot easier and a lot more secure. Does your hosting come with a dedicated IP address? If you are on a shared hosting account with 1,000, 3,000 other accounts, and one of those accounts gets hacked and starts sending out attacks, then your IP is going to end up on a bunch of blacklists. And you might end up, being unable to send email from that hosting account or worse. And does the hosting provider offer SSH or SFTP? That's secure FTP. Just like SSL or TLS certificates, if you are connecting to your hosting account using just standard FTP and there's someone else on your network, say you're uploading a file on like airport Wi-Fi or something, then someone can sniff the traffic and intercept it and, see what you're uploading, or maybe even alter what you're uploading. Though that is a bit trickier than you'd expect. So yes, look for secure upload methodologies. When it comes to your responsibilities, the big thing to ask is whether or not your hosting is going to be properly isolated. This includes, making sure you're not hosting multiple accounts on these, or multiple sites on the same account without some kind of isolation, and more specifically, making sure you're not keeping old versions of your site on the same hosting account as your current site. It doesn't matter how secure your current website is if there's a subfolder with old copy of your website that's got a ton of vulnerabilities, because as soon as someone takes over that old website, they'll have access to the rest of your hosting account unless it's isolated, and there goes your brand new secure-ish website. So yes, there's a lot of choices to be made with hosting. Some involve the provider you're going for, and some are effectively choices with how you manage your hosting, but they're all very important. But that leads me to mistake number 4, which is poor user access management. Now, this one's actually, I'm actually going to have a blog post coming out later this week involving this, and with a little bit more explanations on how WordPress roles and WordPress capabilities are managed. But there's something called the principle of least privilege, and I think Chloe's mentioned this in the past, but it basically means, giving any users the least amount of permissions that they need in order to do what you want them to do. So I'm actually going to share my screen. If I can find the right browser window, which is, well, guess this one will do. Anyways, so when you add a new user, you might have noticed that you can assign them different roles. And so you do not want to add a new user who's an administrator unless they really need that ability. Most of the time, if you want someone writing blog posts for you, you'll want to set them as a contributor or maybe an author if you really trust them. If you want people editing other people's blog posts, you might want to set them as an editor, though bear in mind that you really want to trust your editors because editors can usually get away with things that can allow them to take over a site. Another thing you'll want to make sure is that unless you actually have a reason for people to be able to register on your site, you'll want to make sure that your site doesn't allow open registration so that anyone can register setting, turn that off unless you actually want subscribers or, if you're an e-commerce site, you will need customers to be able to register. But otherwise, so many vulnerabilities rely on someone having a user account, even if that user account has almost no permissions. Another thing you'll want to make sure of is password management. And again, Chloe brought this up, but you'll want to make sure that you're enforcing strong passwords. Fortunately, Wordfence has an option to ensure this. And I think login security also falls under this, heading of user and access control management. But Wordfence does actually come with the ability to enforce strong passwords. By default, it's admins and publishers, anyone who has, more permissions, but you can set it so that everyone on your site can be forced to use a strong password. So that's one of the main reasons. That's one of the main ways you can make your site stronger is basically if you're making sure that anyone who does have access to your site is locked down to the minimum level of permissions that they need and the minimum, the maximum password strength. So that leads me to mistake number 3. And speaking of insider threats, using nulled themes or plugins. So it's fairly common for, website developers or administrators looking to save a little cash to, instead of purchasing premium plugins or themes, they'll pirate them. And there's a lot of websites out there that advertise free or nulled or unlocked plugins or themes. They look legitimate. They seem to offer the same functionality as the paid version, but they will actually install malware on your site. Anytime you install a nulled theme or plugin, you are almost guaranteed to be installing a backdoor on your site that allows whoever owns the nulled plugin or theme site to, at the very least, advertise their own stuff on your site, and in almost all cases, allows them to actually take control of your site. Once you've got a nulled plugin or theme installed on your site, since you installed it yourself, it's very hard to root out just because you've given them all the access they need. So honestly, that one is pretty close up there. Like that's mistakes number 3, 2, and 1 are kind of shift positions depending on, the year or the month, but that is always a big one. Mistake number 2 is reusing passwords. And a lot of the time, if there's no obvious vulnerabilities, our site cleaning team finds that a lot of compromises happen because you've maybe reused a password on your website that has been in a data breach. So the good news is that Wordfence does come with a feature that prevents the use of passwords that are found in data breaches. And I'm going to share my screen again. So prevent the use of passwords leaked in data breaches is an option that is on by default in Wordfence. By default, it's on for administrators only, but you can turn it on for all users that are allowed to publish posts. And I probably would recommend doing that. So yes, we do actually regularly check to make sure that, if you update your profile and your password has been in a data breach, we will warn you when you're updating it to that. We don't actually send the password to the data breach site. It's actually a fairly secure process where we take a hash of the password and then compare it to the hashes that the data breach sites have. So that prevents your password from actually being transmitted anywhere. And the number 1 mistake that just about everyone makes when it comes to website security is not updating WordPress core, WordPress themes, or WordPress plugins. And we did a bit on automatic updates and how whether or not they're a good idea depends on your use case, and that remains true. But you will still want to, at the very least, manually look at any available updates and review them to make sure that your site can use them as soon as possible. A lot of vulnerabilities are still being found on a weekly basis, and updating as soon as a vulnerability is patched is honestly the best way to protect your site. Our firewall will protect you against a lot of vulnerabilities even before they're found. Our firewall will also protect you against vulnerabilities after they're found, because we'll be writing firewall rules to protect you. But if your site is up to date, if you update to the patched version of the plugin, then you'll be safe as well. So that's really the most important thing you can do, is update as soon as you're confident in the update itself. And I think that's it for our top 10 mistakes.
That was a good list. I didn't see any. I didn't see any guesses for the number 1 there. There's a lot of discussion in the chat, so I didn't see any for that. But I did skip over Chloe last time. I believe Chloe fixed the issue she was having. Is that right, Chloe?
Yes, that's right. I figured out why it wasn't working. So basically, Sally's cat blog had PHP or code execution disabled in her uploads directory. So I wasn't able to access the PHP file and get it to execute. Fortunately, I got it to work because I made Sally make a mistake. So let me share my screen real quick just to show you what this looks like, and show you the importance of why having disabled PHP code execution in the uploads directory is really important. So here's my screen. I send the request real quick. Still gonna be slow. Really slow. Okay, so beforehand I did another one just in case this happened. Okay, there it goes. So our file name is proof2. So we'll go ahead and go to WP content, uploads. I have proof1, which was my test. And so we'll go to proof2, which I just uploaded. And you can see that it executes and I get all the PHP information right here. And yeah, so that is one really good example of why you should enable the feature to disable code execution in the uploads directory. Wordfence offers this for you. You can go to all options and you can enable that option. And when file upload vulnerabilities are found and they upload to the uploads directory, the PHP code in them will not execute and your site should be safe.
I see Mark has joined us
Yeah.
momentarily here. Wasn't sure if we got Zoom bombed or not.
Yeah. I heard
Hi.
How's it going over there?
It's good. It's good. How are you doing, Scott?
Oh, it's going really well here. We got a lot of good tips here. Good questions today as well. We got a couple more for whenever we're ready. What's up over there, Mark?
Yeah, for sure. I thought I'd just come and hang out for a little bit and you say hi, and I can be around for any customer questions as well if anyone wants to hit me up with anything. Yeah, why don't I let you get through the questions you got there, Scott?
Well, we got one good question here, and this is something we touched on last week. I remember asking you, Ram. The WordPress 5.5 allows automatic updates. Now, does that override the option in Wordfence? And I believe one of the things that we changed in the last Wordfence version would make it so if the option was enabled for Wordfence, that it would sort of get overridden. Is that right?
Effectively, yes. We check to see if WordPress core automatic updates are enabled for WordFence, and if they are, we let WordPress core handle it. So that way there's no conflicts. That way we're not both trying to update at the same time. We just, if our option is enabled and core isn't, then we'll do it. And if core is enabled and we are, then we'll let core do it.
We have, is PHP execution a premium feature? Now, I'm not sure about that question exactly. I believe, is that one of the firewall rules they might be mentioning?
No, it's actually an option. It's free and premium. It's under all options, I believe, under the general tab. Let me just verify that real quick.
We had a question for Mark. If you were in a camper, I think you're on the road, right?
Yeah, I'm in my Airstream right now. I am actually 10 minutes from my house in Redmond, but my house is in pieces because I'm renovating it. So I'm staying at a campground called Tult McDonald at the confluence of the Tult and the Snoqualmie River. So it's really pretty here, actually.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I need to get out and about. It's I feel like I've been stuck in the house forever now. There's just there's not much going on over here. There's not much to do, but I think we got a lot of word fencers that have campers and RVs and stuff. So that might be the next thing for me. I'm gonna hit the road.
Did you hear the rumor that that Defiant is buying an Airstream, or has actually put in an order for an Airstream? We will soon have a company Sprinter pulling a company Airstream.
Uh-oh. How many people could we fit in there?
Well, that's actually for Sean Corbett, who did the Open documentary last year. He's doing a film project on the road. Plus, in the year of COVID, when none of our team can fly around or that kind of thing, we've had to change our logistics quite a lot to keep creating media and so on. And so we're doing some making some radical changes by buying Airstreams and Sprinter vans.
I'm looking for some more questions. Do you see anything, Ram, Chloe, at all that we missed here?
Well,
Tim is killing the questions. Sure, go for it.
Yeah, so you guys are brilliant, and I feel very privileged to work with all of you, good folks. And I don't know that everyone on here realizes how credentialed and experienced you are. Ram, just to throw you under the bus. So I guess you have a GWAP and maybe a couple other credentials. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I just have a GWAP, which is a GAC. It's the SANS Institute's GAC certified web application penetration tester. I'm not saying it taught me everything I know, but it did teach me how to hack websites, how to do it ethically. And what to look for when it comes to vulnerabilities. And I do have a CHFI, which is an EC Council certified hacking forensic investigator. But I think Chloe has something like 10 times as many credentials as I have. So
yeah, I wasn't sure we'd have time for all of that. So I'll start with you, and then we'll go to Chloe. Ram, so your role at Wordfence, I obviously know what it is, but I wanted to kind of give folks an idea of what you actually do here. And You're obviously doing QA and threat intelligence. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I always like to say that threat intelligence is, or at least vulnerability hunting, is just QAing other people's plugins. So I use a lot of the same tools for both. Like I'll use Xdebug to step through the execution of, something that I think is a bug. I'll use Xdebug to step through the execution of something I think might be a vulnerability, and take a look at the actual state of the program while I'm, sending out a request to do it.
Yeah, no, cool. And by the way, I hope I'm not inconveniencing you guys too much, but I suspect we'll go over time here by a fair amount. I just wanted to kind of geek out on how amazing our team is for a little bit. And it's funny, so Ram, I guess just to give the viewers some background, my co-founder, Carrie Boyd, who is camera shy, but she actually ran a big QA team at Norton Antivirus back in the 1990s, and then built BBC Digital TV's QA team, and has a ton of other very serious large company QA experience. And so in our company, we really put a premium on software quality assurance, or quality assurance, SQA or QA, whatever you want to call it. And it really helps us in terms of shipping very robust code. So the Wordfence plugin is extremely well tested by folks like Ram. But then, as Ram, as you were saying, I mean, I guess threat intelligence is QA in a way, but hacking is kind of like QA too, isn't it? I mean, you're just finding bugs in people's software. Even if you're a black hat hacker, that's kind of the goal, right?
Exactly. Yes, threat intelligence encompasses a lot of other stuff, but vulnerability hunting especially is just a very specialized form of QA.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Chloe, hit us. Give us so just some background here, just some context before we jump over to Chloe. So, Chloe, you joined. Can I show your age, or should I not?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. You joined when you were 19, and you're like in your 21 or 22.
I think I joined at 18, and I'm 22 now.
Okay, and I think we created like a very junior position for you, and you're like, hey, that very quickly, and almost immediately got promoted several times, and you're now part of our threat intelligence team, doing research into vulnerabilities in other people's software. And I think you're I mean, you've knocked it out of the park so many times, as have you, Ram, and other folks on our team as well, like Matt Barry and so on. But I think it was a week or two ago you were reporting on Facebook and their code.
Yeah. Facebook.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about your credentials and maybe like the order in which you got them? Because I think for folks who are listening who are interested in getting into the security space, or if they're developers and they want to really, become more knowledgeable about writing secure code, it would give them a good sense of what your progression was and what worked for you and what might work for them.
Yeah, sure. So it started 3 years ago. My first cert was Security Plus, and that was kind of like the foundation of everything. It's kind of what sparked my interest in security. It's like so my parents are both in the security world, and I'd always watched them, and I was always like, man, that's too hard. I'm never going to ever do that. Like, I don't want my brain to hurt that much. But I got the Security Plus certification, and I was like, okay, I actually like this. It's not as scary as it seems when you're watching other people do it. And so I got that one. And then I really liked getting certifications. Like at the end, you get this rush. You're like, oh my gosh, I studied so hard. And then I ended up passing and everything. So it's this rush with this knowledge. And so I was like, okay, security is probably going to be the direction that I want to go in now. And so after that, I got my CYSA Plus, which is Cybersecurity Analyst Plus from CompTIA. Just went a little bit more in depth in like analysis logs and things like that. And then after that one, I was hungry for more. And so I ended up getting my SSCP from ISC Squared. That one just was another, covered a little more stuff, basics again. And I think at that point, that's when there was a security mystery role, or not a security role, but a mystery role for Wordfence. and I decided to apply, and I was like, just give me anything that I can do in security. Like, I just want to dive into that. And so that's when they opened the role for associate security analyst for me. And that's when I got started doing site cleanings and such. At that point, I wanted to expand my knowledge again, and I went for the CEH, which is Certified Ethical Hacker from EC Council. That taught me a little bit more about tools and different things regarding just the ethical hacking process and standards and things like that. And then from that one, I think after that one, it was the ECSA, I think, which was EC Council's security analyst, certified security analyst. And so basically that covered the pen testing process. And so I got really interested in that, and like how you like poke for things and try and find things. And then I got the Pen Test Plus certification. And that was another diving into pen testing again. And that's when we went to DEF CON, and Mark was like, so what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know, maybe pen testing or something. And he was like, maybe you should try threat research. And so that's when I got started in threat research. I was gifted with an amazing mentor, Matt Berry. He's taught me a lot of the stuff I know about secure coding and development in the WordPress world, and I owe a lot of thanks to him for teaching me a lot of the things that he's taught me. When I first started, I barely knew what burp was, and now it's something I use every single day. And then at that point, I had decided that that's the focus I wanted to take with my career. So I wanted to be a threat researcher, find vulnerabilities and stuff. So that's when I decided I needed to start focusing on learning and certifications that are going to help me towards that goal. That's when I got OSCP. I think that was the next one. That's when I went for the OSCP. That one was my hardest one, but it was the most exciting, the most challenging.
That's a 24-hour exam, right?
Yep, 24 hours. It was brutal, but it was so like at the end of it, I was like, I never ever want to do this again. And then I gave it a week, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready for the next one. So yeah, that one it taught me a lot. Like the course material was like labs, and you had to find ways to privilege escalate, get into applications and things. And it was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot from that one. So that one's definitely my favorite so far. After that, I went for the OSWP, which is Offensive Security's Wireless Professional. Just wanted to get a little bit of knowledge there because I felt like that was one of my weak points. And it was also a 4-hour hands-on exam. So those are kind of my favorite certs right now. And so I did that one. And then recently I took the CISSP exam and passed. So I have my Associates of ISC Squared certification. It's not technically a certification, but I have that status until December of next year when I can qualify fully for the CISSP. And then last week, I actually took another certification exam that I'm waiting on results for, so let's not jinx it. And after that, I want to go for my OSWE, which is Offensive Security's Advanced Web Exploit certification. So it's source code analysis. It's doing what I do every day, and hopefully I can expand my knowledge a little bit more by working on that one. That was really long. I'm sorry.
That was perfect. And I guess when you find a vulnerability in someone's code, they shouldn't feel too bad because there's a ton of education and experience that is behind your ability to find those things. And so, you know, if a developer happens to write something that you are able to exploit, I don't think they should feel too bad about that.
No. And everybody makes mistakes. I'm sure if I build a plugin, I'd probably have something wrong with it too. So.
Yeah. You know, I'd forgotten about that mystery role that we did. Help me remember that. I guess what we did there is we said we're opening up a mystery job, and anyone in our team can define what they want to do in the company.
So it was anybody, anywhere. So you just had it on the Defiant site. It was a job application, just like anybody could apply from anywhere for anything, and you could see if it would fit.
Well, that worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we could do that again, actually. I think we should do that again.
Yeah, it gave me the courage to ask for that like next step. So I think, yeah.
That role was actually what made me realize that I might want to work at Defiant or Wordfence.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we're definitely doing it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for anyone watching, has everyone left, or do we still have some viewers? Scott, I guess the numbers on the YouTubes. But anyway, so we are hiring. We have a senior PHP developer position open right now, and we just brought on board like 5 people, and I think we're going to be opening up 1 or 2 more positions in the coming weeks. So keep an eye on defiance.com on the employment section there. So yeah.
Chloe, we had at least one question for you. I'm trying to find the tab. I got 100 things open now. The HT access, I believe, or was it HT password that you used? We had multiple questions of some viewers wondering how that was implemented. Was that done via the HT access file?
So it's actually a .htpasswd file. You can just look up that name and a bunch of resources will come up to help you walk through the procedures to getting that implemented. It's just basically a file that you put a username and password into, and then you have to modify your HT access to make that protection enabled.
Okay, and just to update everybody, that was with regard to the number 10 common mistake that we were seeing, which is changing your login page or using a different login page. We also had a question about if a customer gets locked out due to using the wrong username, which is one of the features in the free and premium version. What are they told, and can it be customized? And I know we do have a feature to customize. You're told that you've been temporarily locked out of the system and that you're not going to be able to log in for a while. Now that time depends on what you have set in brute force. But Ram, do you know off the top of your head if that customized option that we have shows up on the brute force options, which I believe it does, but just wanted to double check.
Yeah, it does, even in the free version of Wordfence, as well as the premium version of Wordfence. It's under Wordfence Firewall, all firewall options, and it's just under the brute force settings, and you can, change, how many times you want to let someone get like a 404 page before they're temporarily blocked, or we even have just a rate limiting feature to where we can slow down requests if you get too many without actually blocking the user.
Okay, yeah, I thought that it would show up on there. We had Tommy mention that mistake number 11 is not following along with his stream every week. So I would have to agree with Tommy there.
That's mistake number 0.
Cannot be topped.
I saw there's a question Nancy Verdi had about their Bluehost accounts. Scott, I don't think we've answered that yet. Yeah. My hosting account at Bluehost is a VPS server, and I have many sites under one account. What should I do to make all the sites secure? Chloe, I think that's kind of your worst nightmare, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, so don't have them all in one account. Yeah, that's honestly like the best way to make sure they're all secure is not have them all in one account, because they can just hop from one to another if they get access to one site. So, I mean, do we have any recommendations for all sites with one account besides?
I will say, if it's a VPS and they have, root access, they can create a separate user for each account and basically set the permissions on all the files and folders so that only that user is actually allowed to say write to that particular account. They'll still have to have, group read, because it's still going to have to be owned by, you could probably do some sort of CH rooting as well. But yes, you will want to look up Linux user and group permissions and effectively put every single website under a different user's ownership on the VPS so that they can't really affect each other.
Yeah, so no easy answer, Nancy. We're afraid. I remember we did a confidential incident response a while back, and it was a big breach. It was a WordPress site that had been compromised, a very well-known company, and we did the investigation on that. And they ended up having a similar situation because they were running WordPress multi-site, and it was like, I'm not going to mention the company's name because it was confidential, but it was a massive multi-site installation, and they were breached. And as we kind of wrapped things up, the recommendation was don't have 1,600 websites on multi-site because the attack surface is just massive. And we kind of left it with them to decide whether they were going to change that or not. But the amount of work involved in splitting out 1,600 sites from multi-site is tremendous. And so, it's a similar situation here where once that ship has sailed and you've set up a whole bunch of sites on a single account, you're in a situation where all your eggs are in one basket. If one site is hacked, all of them are going to be compromised, or at least you have to assume that all of them are compromised. And as the sites become more complex and you have to, getting yourself out of that situation becomes more and more labor intensive. So if you are starting off with a new hosting account or multi-site installation, just consider that you might want to just bite the bullet and create separate sites to have them all isolated from each other. Does that sound about right, Ram?
That does. Isolation is always going to be your best path forward, especially for something like a multi-site where there is, one user that can rule them all. That does actually increase your potential attack surface. Just because if anyone gains access to that user for any reason, such as, say, password free use, then they can control all the other sites. So start out by isolating, and that way you won't have to do it later.
Yeah, sure.
Henry had a question about limiting access to the login, so you don't get so many attempts. Maybe to take some of it off the brute force protection, and he asked if we had covered that already. That was covered, early on with Chloe, I believe. So we talked a little bit about country blocking at that point as well. So if you're a premium user, country blocking will take a lot of the stress off of your brute force protection by just limiting the access to the login form to begin with. And outside of that, Chloe had also shown the HT password method of needing a separate login before you even get to the WP login area. And we had a question for you, Chloe, as well about what tools you're using. I know you showed Burp there. Is there anything else that you commonly use?
Yeah, so my two core tools that I use every day is Burp Suite. That's the main one because I love it. You modify requests and everything and play around. And the other one I use is PHP Storm with Xdebug. So like RAM, you can step through the code and see what's doing what where. And it's actually a really, really great learning tool. When I started out, I had no development background at all. And Matt Berry recommended those were the two tools that I use. In PHP Storm and with Xdebug, it helped me learn code flow and things like that. So definitely recommend it if you're looking to get into threat research.
You can use VS Code too. Just going to stay on my own code editor, but it's a little trickier to get Xdebug set up with it.
So Scott, you're I guess we chatted about Ram and Chloe. So you're obviously in our customer service team and hosting this show, and then you're hosting our podcast on, I guess you're publishing those later in the week now?
Yeah, those usually go live Friday mornings, it seems like now.
Yeah, awesome. And how can folks find that if they want to subscribe?
The podcast you can check out at it's in the footer of the wordfence.com page, or you can go to the wordfence.com/podcast, and it's also on Spotify and I believe iTunes and some others I have not checked out, but I keep finding it somewhere else each week, so that's exciting.
Yeah. So Scott took that over from Kathy Zant, our head of marketing, with Kathy's mentorship, and seems to have taken shape quite nicely. So, we should probably wrap it up at some point.
Well, we could stay here, all day. It's fun, just try to get another couple hundred people. I'm not sure how many people we have in chat right now. I have everything closed down. Tim is getting a lot of the questions. I believe we got everything answered. I'll take one more look just in case. Don't want to leave anything out. I think we are good. So yeah, we're 1:20, so we're 20 minutes past the hour. We always enjoy everybody's company here and stopping by and hanging out with us. Like we said, we had 200 and some people in chat before we got going today. So thanks everybody for hanging out and sending your questions in. We want to say thanks again to our premium customers and our premium subscribers, because thanks to you, we're able to do these streams. And, right now when we're not able to get out to WordCamps and whatnot, this is our way to interact and talk security with all the security fanatics out there and the people who enjoy using WordPress and love using Wordfence. So we appreciate you stopping by every week. We do this every week on Tuesday at noon Eastern time, which is 9 a.m. Pacific. If you want to support Wordfence, there's a few ways that you can do that. You can become a premium customer, and then you'll get access to some of the features that we had talked about today, which are the real-time IP blacklist. We had some questions about that earlier. It's automatically populated. As soon as you put your license into Wordfence, you're going to be protected by the IP blacklist, which are pretty much the worst IPs that we see hitting Wordfence sites, and your site is then protected from them. You might get emails here and there saying that 100 and some blocks were made in a very short period of time. That's a high attack rate email, and a lot of the time that's thanks to the real-time IP blacklist. So if you have premium right now and you haven't gotten an idea of what that's doing, check it out in live traffic. You can go to the filter option and check out the blocked and blocked by firewall, and you'll see some of those blocks there. Another thing you can do is like this video and subscribe to our channel. As I said, if you get notifications, you'll get notifications on Tuesdays when we go live at noon Eastern. I talked earlier about Wordfence Central. If you have multiple Wordfence sites right now, it's a free solution. It's a hub to check on all of your sites in one place. You can push out different templates to your sites. As I mentioned, we have users on there with hundreds of sites added who take advantage of just being able to get onto one place and look at the security on all the sites. It'll tell you your recent scan results. You can kick scans off from that area. And it's a very nice tool. It's free, and you can add your free sites onto there as well. We also have a tool called Fast or Slow. It's a website profiling tool. So if you have a site, which I'm assuming most of you do, head over to fastorslow.com, and it's a global performance monitoring solution for your site, and it's going to detect and report on the most important factors that affect your user's experience on your site. So go ahead over there and put your domain into there and see how your site rates, and then you can look through our documentation that we have there to help you speed it up if it needs to be sped up. Also, open.film. Now that we're not getting out to WordCamps quite as much, if you haven't seen it, go over to open.film, and it's a film that we produced here at Wordfence, and it was Mark and Kathy were both involved heavily into that. And it's about the WordPress community, and we interviewed a lot of cool people for that, and it gives you the feeling of the WordCamps and the community and the people involved really came out very well in that. So maybe if you haven't been to a WordCamp, check that out. It's a short film, I believe, around 13 minutes. Mark can probably tell me how long that is off the top of his head.
Yeah, sorry, I had to unmute myself there. Yeah, I think it's about 13 minutes, and was a heck of a lot of fun to make. I mentioned Sean Corbett's earlier. He was the director of that film, and he now works for us full time. So we're actually working on some fun projects this year. But yeah, definitely check it out, open.film. It's kind of a love letter to the WordPress community.
Yeah, like I said, if you haven't gotten a chance to watch that, it's short. Go over and take a look at it. Whether you've been to a WordCamp or not, it gives out that vibe that you get at the WordCamps. It's a really nice film to watch. We mentioned the podcast already. You can check that out at the bottom of the wordfence.com page in the footer, or wordfence.com/podcast. And that is hosted by myself and produced by the awesome team here at Wordfence, and we do that weekly. So we give you a quick little 5 to 10 minute update of the news in security. So it's a good thing to catch up on for 5 or 10 minutes. And last but not least, the mailing list. Check that out, and you'll know about our new vulnerabilities first. And we talked a lot about Chloe and Ram today, and if you sign up on the mailing list, you're going to hear more from them and on a regular basis, and it'll keep you secure. If you're a free user, definitely sign up and just keep that knowledge that comes over. It'll help you know what you need to get updated, what you need to get rid of, and it'll keep your site safe. So if you have any feedback for Wordfence Live, if you have any questions that you didn't want to ask in chat, send us an email at feedback@wordfence.com and use Wordfence Live in the subject line. From all of us here at Wordfence, we appreciate you stopping by, and we look forward to seeing you next week. So thanks everybody for joining us, and thanks Mark for stopping by. It was nice having a guest, and hopefully we can
Zoom bomb you.
Yeah, hopefully
this was really fun.
Let's do some regular Zoom bombs from the Wordfence workers, hopefully in the future. So thanks everybody for stopping by, and we appreciate it. We'll see you next week. Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.